Algebra 1, we're going to be on going over page 43 and 44. All right, so problem number 1, we said, remember, we were taking a look at these two things, and they both have parentheses. Those are the same. Factor those out, and then whatever you have left goes in the other set of parentheses. So these are pretty simple, but I want you to see this pattern that's taking place. Notice we have the exact same two parentheses each time. What we're going to be leading to us getting to this type of thing when we are factoring out something starting today, and we'll work with for quite some time. So those are the same. So 2x plus 5 is in the first, and 3 plus x is in the second. Number 4, if you just look at it, I mean, I'm just going based on the problem. There's no reason for me to write it down. And let's see this. That's going to be x minus 2, and then whatever I've left, x plus 12, or 6. We have the x plus 3s that are the same, and then whatever's left over goes in the other set of parentheses. Then we get to the ones that have 4 terms. So 10x to the third minus 10x squared minus 12x plus 10 or plus 12. So again, we're going to look just at our first two terms, and we don't even have to break things down now. Just realize this: x to the third is x, right? And x to the second is x and x. So if I look at it, I have a 10x squared because I have two x's or xx together. And that leaves me x minus 1. Remember, I have to do a placeholder. Everything came out. Remember, this middle sign always comes down. And it looks like I have a 12 in common between those two. So remember, I'm factoring a negative out. So this is no longer negative 12x. It's now going to be positive x. Think about that. Negative 12 times x is negative 12x. This is the key. Watch this. This is going to become negative 1. Now, why did it become negative 1? Well, if I had redistributed this back over here, negative 12 times negative 1 is positive 12. Now these are the same. And then whatever I have left, I just deal with right there. That's a parenthesis. Got a little sloppy, sorry. Number 8. All right, so let's take a look here. Remember, x to the third is xxx, x to the second is xx. So I can factor two of those out. So I have x squared, and that leaves me a 2x plus 1, because everything factored out of this one. Remember, this sign comes down. What goes into both 6 and 3? What number goes into them both? Well, you know that 6 is 3 times 2, so you can factor a 3 out of both of those, and then you have 2x. Factor 3 out of 3, you're left with 1. Those are the same. And so you get to that. Okay, number 9 on page 44. X to the third plus x squared plus 3x plus 3. So what do I have in common between those? Remember, x to the third is xxx, x squared is xx, so I'm going to factor an x squared out of both. If I factor x squared out, I'm left with an x. If I factor x squared of that, I have a placeholder of 1. This sign comes down. I can factor a 3 out of both of those. Factor a 3 out of 3x, I'm left with x. Factor a 3 out of 3, I'm left with 1. These are the same, so that's the big key. That's what we're trying to get to. Number 10. Okay, so what do we have in common between those? Well, 4 is 2 times 2, so factor 2 out of both of those. And then remember xxx and xx, so I factor x squared out. So I'm left with 2x here, and everything factors out of this whole thing, so I have a placeholder of 1. Middle sign comes down. 3 goes into both. If these match, we can factor them out, which they do. Number 11. So let's take a look at that. Okay, so I know that that's going to be this. But think about 12. I'm not going to break it down all the way. What do I have in common? I have a 4 and a 4 and an XX and an XX. So I can factor out 4x squared. That leaves me x plus 3. And then this sign comes down. That means I'm factoring a negative out of both of those. Factor a negative 3 out, which becomes a positive x. Factor a negative out of a negative, that becomes positive. Combine like terms. There's our answer. If you have any questions about these individually, let me know and I'm happy to help you, okay? Number 12 looks a little bit different. Okay, so we'll slow down a little bit. I know 6 goes into 12, so I can factor 6 out front. I also have the y's. So I have 6y that comes out front. That leaves me an x here plus what times 6 gives me 12, and that would be 2. The middle sign comes down. This one gets a little tougher to think about, but think about this. When you see a bigger number in both spots, does 18 go into 36? Yes, 18 times 2. So if I factor an 18 out, I have 18 comes out, x plus 2. Just redistribute it. Think about it. 18 times x, 18x, 18 times 2, 36. So it totally works. These are the same, which we want. And I get 6y plus 18. There's our answer. Number 13, 3x squared plus 3x plus x plus 1. Oh, this is a good one. This is a good one because here you can probably see that a 3x comes out. That leaves me x plus 1. Friends, does anything factor out of this? No, so I'm going to factor a 1 out. So if nothing factors, then try and pull a 1 out and see what happens. Those are the same, which we want. In the other set of parentheses, we get this. Number 14, I get 4a squared plus 10a plus 14a plus 35. Okay, let's see. 2 goes into both. They both have an a. That leaves me 2a plus 5. Middle sign comes down. Okay, what number goes into 14 and 35? I would say 7, because 2 times 7 is 14 and 7 times 5 is 35. So a 7 comes out. That leaves me 2a plus 5. Those are the same. And then what do I have left? I have both of those. Number 15, I have 3x squared plus 15x minus 2x minus 10. So can I factor a 3x out of both of those? Sure can. That leaves me x plus 5. Middle sign comes down. I can factor a negative 2 out of both of those. Factor a negative 2 out of negative 2x, I'm left with x. Factor a negative 2 out of negative 10, I'm left with positive 5. Those are the same. That leaves me 3x minus 2. Number 16. Okay, looks like I can just factor an x squared out of both of those. That leaves me 2x minus 5. Remember, the sign comes down. I can factor 7 out of both of those. That gives me 2x, and then both signs change, so those are now the same. That's what we want. And then x squared minus 7. And then the last one from the homework is this. Okay, I can factor an x out of both of those. The negative sign comes with it. Factor a 4 out of both of those. Both signs change. That's what we want. Now, friends, if both of these signs are if these are different, you can't factor them out. Okay, let's go to page 45 and see what we have. And we might actually have to do this over a couple days. We're actually going to work on this quite a bit. I'm going to go to the beginning of my slides. Okay, so we want to know what two binomials, like is there something like 3x plus 5 and x plus 7 or something like that? what two things would multiply together to get this? Okay, so that's the first thing we're going to do. So we're going to be looking at factoring by grouping. That's what we'll focus on mainly. I only want to show you the one. You'll start seeing some logical ways to do it later, but factoring by grouping will work every time, including in geometry and other classes. Okay, so if you multiply this together, that's going to give me x squared. That's going to give me 2x. That's going to give me 8x. That's going to give me 16. Combine those together and we get this. So we had done this in the last chapter. So now we're going to figure out how to go from this problem back to this. Okay? So I'll just tell you the answer to this is x plus 4 and x plus 5. Okay? We'll get to figure out how that is. It's not just some miracle. There's a process that'll go through. Okay, so let's think about this. Excuse me. All right, here's what you want to do. If you have an x squared out front, you want to make that 1x squared. That's your very first thing. Okay? From here, we're going to multiply positive 18 and positive 1 together. Now, I want to think about what times what gives me 18. Well, I know that 1 times 18. I also know that 2 times 9. And I also know that 3 times 6. Those all give me 18. Now, the nice thing is both of these signs are positive. That's important for this one. So we want to think about, if I add these together, do I get 11? No, I get 19. If I add these together, do I get 11? No, I get 9. These are the ones that I add together. 2 plus 9 is equal to 11. So watch what we're going to do. We're going to keep the x squared just as it is, and then I'm going to go plus 2x and plus 9x. You can do this in whatever order you want. You can have a 9x here and a 2x here, and then I have the plus 18 at the end. So notice, I split apart the middle. 2x plus 9x is 11x. Okay, that's what we want. Now we have 4 terms, so let's group it. I'm going to factor an x out, so I get x plus 2. That sign comes with it. I can factor a 9 out of both of those. That gives me an x plus 2. Those are the same, so I get x plus 2. What do I have left? X plus 9. We just factored. This next one's a little different. Okay, we don't have to put a 1 out front because we already have a 3. So let's do the same process. 10 times 3 is positive 30. Okay, all my signs are positive, and that's going to work for right now. So I know 30 is 1 times 30. It's also 2 times 15. It's also 3 times 10. And it's also 5 times 6. So I want to figure out which pairs of these are going to add up to 17. So if I add 1 and 30 together, I get 31. That's not 17. If I add 3 and 10 together, that's 13. It's not 17. If I add 5 and 6 together, that's 11. That's not 17. But if I add those together, 2 plus 15 is 17. So take the very first term, 3x squared, plus 2x, plus 15x, and then take my last term, plus 10. So again, notice I split apart this. Now we're going to look at the first 2 terms. And I could have had 15x here, I could have had 2x here, so it would still work out. That's going to give me x and 3x plus 2. This sign comes down. I can factor a 5 out of both of those. 3x plus 2 goes right here. And I get x plus 5. Okay, it's a little different thinking, so we're kind of undoing some stuff, okay? So, oh, it looks like part of your page is cut off. Wow, I don't know why. Right, so this is all of the kind of the walkthrough of it. It's called factor by grouping. Okay. So I think what I'd like to do is go to page 47. And we're going to slowly go through this. First thing, I have x squared, so I want to put a 1 out front. Are you okay with that? I'm going to multiply 10 times 1 to get positive 10. Okay, because that's positive 10 too. 1 times 10 and 2 times 5. Take a look. If I add these together, I'm going to get positive 11, and that's a negative 7. If I add these together, I'm going to get positive 7. So somehow we have to manipulate this one to give me a negative 7. Well, would you feel comfortable saying that negative 2 times negative 5 is also positive 10? If I were to add negative 2 and negative 5 together, do I get negative 7? I do. So this is what we're going to use in that middle. So I'm going to have x squared first. Then I'm going to go minus 2x and minus 5x plus 10. Those are like terms. If I factor in x out of x squared minus 2x, I'm left with x minus 2. Remember, the sign's going to come down. 5 goes into both of those. Those are the same. This is what we have left. That's how we factor it. So notice, the signs can be positives and they can be negatives. In fact, they could be one of each. So it's just a matter of logically kind of going through and thinking about it. Let's think about this next problem. First step, multiply 5 times 3. That gives me positive 15. Now this one's going to work out nicely because the signs are all the same, so everything's going to stay positive. So I know that 1 times 15 and 3 times 5, when multiplied together, would give me that 15. I want the ones that will add up to 16. What do you think it would be? Yeah, the 1 and 15. So I'm going to take the first term down. I'm going to bring the last term down. And in the middle, I'm going to put plus 1x and plus 15x. Again, I could have had 15x here. I could have had 1x here. It's still going to work out. It's going to give me an x. That's 3x plus 1. That middle sign comes down. Factor a 5 out. Those are both the same, correct? That's my answer. Okay, we are not done with this lesson. We will actually finish the lesson tomorrow. But what I want to do, I think you should be able to handle trying page 48 and see if you can do 1, 2, and 3 on page 48. Just try those. I'm only giving you a couple, so try them. We'll go over those tomorrow, and then we will finish the rest of our lesson. So we have that. Let me know if you have any questions. I'm happy to help you with these. Okay, this is a much different thought process, but it's good for you. Have a nice day.